Our afternoon, Saturday afternoon live, and I wanted to talk about energy. And because one of the things that I realized my whole life, I came from a pretty strong Christian home. I grew up in somewhat of a Pentecostal. We were used to seeing things in spirit world, I guess, here and there. But when I really had earlier this year, some big, huge experiences started happening to me spiritually that I had never seen in any of my Christian walk. Nothing that anyone had ever really talked to me about. I mean, I was having some really wild experiences, and this was me actually in sober world. This was me after not drinking. This was me eating just lots of fruits, and I just started seeing things a lot different. And I realized really quick that there was a concept that I thought that we had a body, and inside of our body there is a spirit. But I realized that we are a spirit, that we have a body inside the spirit, and it changed kind of all my perspective and how I seen this spirit world and these energies, and getting to understand these energies that we live in, and understanding the energy that's inside of our body, understanding the energy that's inside of the earth, and understanding the energies that are above us. These are all energies that we have to learn if we want to become aligned. And one of the energies that, the biggest and the deepest and the strongest energy, if you want to have the strongest energy, then the strongest energy is love. And a little even deeper, if you want to tweak it a little bit, is gratitude. Having gratitude, a thankful heart, that is the deepest vibration. It's the highest signal that you can send out to the universe, and to God and to your Maker. And that's how you vibrate the highest. That's the strongest energy. It's the energy that actually co-creates with God. It's what makes this earth, is this whole idea of energy and love and gratitude and thankfulness. Well, what's the opposite of that? Because if there's light energy, there's also dark energy. Well, the dark energy I found is that if you go to the opposite of that, it's really interesting. It's shame. Shame is a very, 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 very dark energy, because I don't know how many of us get out of this life without having shame very much traumatize us. I don't think any of us does, especially if you live in the world that we live in right now, with having so much feedback constantly in mirrors of social media. We're competing against this person and that person. And a lot of us, we get to this point in our life and we know that we hate shame, and we've read about it. There's a lot of good stuff out by there with Brené Brown. She has really good stuff on shame. But, when we get to the bottom of it, earlier this year, there was a big, huge switch that happened in my mind when it came to shame, because I grew up in a Christian home. Like I said, Pentecostal, a lot of shame was used, a lot of hell talk, and a lot of, just of God being kind of an angry person. I had that going with me. In Western civilization, Western culture, we're inundated with shame. I mean, we're just coming out of Christmas time. Just think about Santa Claus, whether you're naughty or nice, there's some kind of list, some kind of fictitious list out there. And if you're good enough, little children, then you're going to get some gifts. But if you're not good enough, you're not going to get some gifts. And what happens, and this is shame, and it gets a little deeper. I actually have a talk in YouTube, you can find it. It's actually on shame, and it gets a little deeper with the ego. But what happens is shame, where does shame actually come from? It comes from systems. The systems. And what do I mean by systems? Well, let's just look at school systems, for example. Not very many school systems, especially the school systems that I grew up with in the 80s and 90s, we would get spanked. In the early 80s, if you didn't do good, I went to a Christian school. If you didn't do good, we would get spanked. Now, here's another thing, we were taught to like the Bible and want to learn about God, but guess what was the first thing if we got in trouble? We would have to write memory verses and have to do them over and over and over again. I used to think to myself, why am I having to use it? Why do they want me to like the Bible, and why do I have to write all these memory verses, and it makes me not like the Bible? I start to dislike God, and because I started to realize that God was this thing that they were using to make me feel bad. And if I didn't do good enough, then I couldn't make it into this group, into that group, and that category, and that category. And I went to a Christian school, so they would give you awards based on how good of a Christian you are. And I'd come home and I was measured by this, this guy up in the sky, and I just felt, and I always been a big strong Christian, but there was always something kind of missing with that. And then so you get into, your religious systems, and then what else is there? Well, there's school systems, there's education systems. Let's just go all the way back to the early 1900s. My great-grandmother went through a simulation school over in Oklahoma on a reservation. Well, what is a simulation school? Because they were ran by Christians and the public schools. The government hired the Christians to come in and make all these big boarding schools. And so this is how shame is born, guys. Think about this. So here are the native people out in their tribes, and they have their land. And here comes this system of people that says, no, we're going to come take you. If you're a child, you have to come to our schools. They ripped them from their families. They took them to these new boarding schools. They made them shave off their hair, which was a very shameful thing in the native culture. And then they made them take away their native names, and they gave them different names. And that's how shame was born in that system. That same education system is still in our education system today. That same education system is still going on today. It's a simulation. It assimilates us into a system. Now just think about this. There's kids that go to school right now, and it's amazing. You can see all the snow around here. I live in it's amazing when you drop kids off to school how many of them are going into school with shorts and t-shirts. Why is that? Think about this for a second. Because they know if they're in middle school or above, they're never going to go outside the entire day. That is a simulation. In my opinion, that's almost child abuse. There's so much shame that's put into that. Now I went to my child's Owen's, what do they call them, the parent-teacher conference with we're doing all the parent, and they're talking to the teachers, and we're sitting there, and the teachers are shaming him because he isn't learning Spanish enough. Now, should he be learning Spanish? He's just coming to a new school, and here's what some of the other parents are like, yeah, you should be learning. I'm like, well, why don't you know it? Well, because I'm older. Oh, so we can't learn because we're older? We shame these kids like crazy for things that we should be doing ourselves, and we don't think the kids know that. You see how shame is born? You can go into politics. You go into Hollywood. Shames are systems. There hasn't always been systems of shames. There has been cultures. Many of our ancestors lived in times where shame was not how you taught. In the Western civilization, our Western cultures, shame is the main motivator to get you to worship God, to get you to go to work, to get you to be a good parent, to get you to pay your taxes, to get you to be a good boy and a good girl. Don't you know that? That's how it's always freaking been. Well, it's not how it's always going to be. Because some of us are waking up. We're realizing that shame in its origin, and get my talk on shame. It gets into how it's born from ego and all that. It's on YouTube. I'm telling you guys that this is 2026 is where we rip that band-aid of shame right off. It's not real. It's an illusion. It's something that is set up to keep you from actually facing your fears. It's something that keeps you in bondage. Shame is the biggest lie that's in your life. Once you take that shame off, I used to walk around because the religion I was part of, I thought sin was everything. Now I realize the reason I don't do things is because I want to stay aligned. I actually like the way it feels to walk outside and feel happy. I like to be in relationship with my wife and my kids and to grow. And I don't want to spend my energy, dark energy into shame. I would rather have my energy going to good things, like learning about why the heck the snow smell like plastic when I burn it. And maybe I'm wrong or right or whatever. I like to spend my time with light energy. Let's get rid of this dark energy and shame. Let's storm 2026 with faith, courage, and love. And eat fruit.